Hello, my name is Rand, and today we're going to do 5 tips on how to create land features. These tips are based on my book, 185 Tips on World Building, and you can get an ebook copy of this for free by looking in the video description and clicking the appropriate link. I also have some other freebies down there. Tip number 1 is to understand where volcanoes are likely to be. Now technically a lone volcano or just a few near each other could be anywhere due to a fault in the plate. Basically the crust is thin enough there that a volcano has formed. However, when it comes to a chain of volcanoes in a mountain range, those are typically along a coastline because a continental plate will converge with an oceanic plate, and the oceanic one is driven under the continental one, and the result is a chain of not only mountains, but volcanoes. On the other hand, when there are two continental plates that are converging, pushing against each other, instead of either one of them being driven underground, they are kind of folding on top of each other, and the result is the tallest mountains in the world, and these tend to be the ones that are not volcanic at all because of the way they're forming. Tip number 2 is that a truly enormous volcano might sound interesting, but it could also be kind of boring. Mount Everest on Earth is the tallest at almost 30,000 feet, so at almost 70,000 feet, Olympus Mons on Mars sounds like it would be so much cooler. But you know something? It's so big, the size of France, that if you were standing on it, you wouldn't even realize you were standing on a volcano. If you're wondering why Olympus Mons is so big, that's because the tectonic plates are not moving at all, and therefore the hotspot is in the same place all the time, and it's just made the volcano get bigger and bigger as time goes on. Tip number 3 is to understand the different states that a volcano can be in. The active state is fairly obvious, but what's the difference between extinct and dormant? Well, extinct means that that volcano has not erupted in living memory. The dormant one has. So we could think that an extinct volcano is never going to erupt, but that's not true. It just hasn't done so in such a time period that anyone remembers it happening. Tip number 4 is that we can use mountains to humanize dragons. Now obviously they're dragons and not humans, but what I mean is that we can make them less invincible. On Earth there are mountains that are so tall, like the Himalayas, that real birds struggle to fly over the top. They have to keep circling and trying over and over again, and sometimes this is so fatiguing that they either give up or some of them actually die because they have used up all their energy. Now given that the air is thin up there and dragons have even more bulk to get over that, it's realistic that dragons would actually have more trouble getting over really tall mountains than anyone else unless they are being assisted by their own magic. So this is one way to make them more believable. Tip number 5 is to decide how old each of the rivers on your continent are. The reason for this is that we don't want all of them to be the same, and this is a simple way to put in some variety. The younger ones are going to be relatively fast and straight, while the oldest ones are going to be slow, meandering, and kind of zigzag across the land. These tips are based on a chapter from Creating Places, and here is a summary of that chapter's contents. Summary of Chapter 4, Land Features. A continent will have mountains, volcanoes, lakes, rivers, forests, woodlands, savannas, jungles, prairies, wetlands, and deserts, but world builders should understand each to place them in believable locations. While some aspects are obvious, minor details can change our decisions and augment our resulting stories. Why say characters have entered a run-of-the-mill forest when we can say it's a savanna instead, describing how it looks and what life is like for inhabitants and those traversing it. This chapter aids world builders in making more varied landscapes, ones that are more accurately depicted. Alright, that's all for these tips. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to see more. While these tips come from 185 Tips on World Building, that book is based on my 3-volume series, The Art of World Building, and the tips in this particular video come from Volume 2, Creating Places. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. By the way, if you'd like more stuff to help with world building, my artofworldbuilding.com site has a bunch of free templates that you can download by joining the mailing list. You can click the link in the episode description or the little information button in the upper right-hand corner. There are over 20 of these templates, as you can see from this list. Most of them are Microsoft Word documents, but the 2 calculator ones, which come from my Creating Places book, are Excel spreadsheets that take care of the math for you. You can just type in measurements from a map and find out how long it takes to go somewhere by dragon, wagon, foot, or even ships. If you're enjoying the video, remember to click the like button and subscribe.